Hey guys, it is Tristan with Nnewsstand, and me and Bianca are back for another Bad Ideas. We're going to talk about something that has definitely taken over the internet and basically anything when it comes to Amber Heard. Now, if you weren't following this trial, it was likely following you, and you've probably heard the basics of the situation. We'll talk a little bit about it, but how are you today, Bianca?
I am doing good, besides the fact I was kicked out of my guild.
Jerks. Let
I
me
know, it
at
was probably because I wasn't online for a few days, and I'm like, "Listen, I work, and I was taking a
them.
mental health day, so your loss."
That's right. That's right. They're lost. So, what I wanted to specifically talk about now that this trial is over, now that, I mean, there's still a lot of controversy after it, but what I wanted to specifically talk about was kind of expand upon a video that came up in my recommendation the other day. It was, to be blunt about it, did Amber Heard kill the Me Too movement? It was by Upper Echelon Gaming. I will put it in the description. It is very well informed and puts out a lot of really great arguments in it, and it's very organized, like OCD organized, and I appreciate that. That's crazy good. So, just right off the bat, what do you think about the whole situation? What do you think? Do you think Amber Heard herself killed the movement?
I feel like no, because the movement was already killed when it first started.
Damn it, Bianca. That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, no, she didn't kill the movement because it was dead beforehand.
Ah, I read your mind, and I took the answer.
That's right. It really was. So, if you guys don't know this, Me Too actually started with good intentions. There was a woman that wanted really just it was more about accountability and awareness. It wasn't about what it came in the later part of it, which was more along the lines of anti-men, pro women, not actually using your head to think when it comes to allegations. And she even went as far to say, yeah, it's become weaponized. It's become weaponized by the left and the right. We've seen it with Brett Kavanaugh when he was being sworn in under the Trump administration. And we've seen it. Oh, and I'm going to forget her name now that I need it. Tara something accused Joe Biden of it. So it's been weaponized by both political parties. It's been weaponized to a degree where a lot of people are actually, um, I would almost say it's become at this point more damaging than actual good.
I agree.
um, so I had you on a couple of times when we were doing the Johnny Depp trial, and I know you're pretty familiar with the whole situation. But as somebody that didn't actually cover it on your channel, what was your kind of takeaway from the different things we heard from Amber on the stand, whether it was about her photos or about her donations or her personal stories about Johnny? Did you find her to be believable? Is the first question.
Not really. I feel like, a lot of the times she was trying too hard.
Right.
And I'm like, "Okay," like, usually when somebody talks about their, experience in life or whatever, I always feel something about it, but for her, like, I didn't feel anything, and I'm like, "Something's off, and I don't know what it is, but you're not giving me that feeling." And it was actually, different from so I'm gonna talk about another trial here,
Oh, no, you're totally fine. Talk about whatever you want.
the, Vikmanyana trial.
Mhm.
I remember when it was going on, I never saw, like, the entire court stuff. I would
Right.
only hear, like, snippets of clips and all that stuff. But when Monica Rial was on the stage and she was talking about how, when she was, I believe, a teenager, that she was raped and all that stuff, and I felt it, and I'm like, That's real. That's real
Right.
emotion that she's talking about right now." But when Amber talked about it, and I'm like, You're not doing anything. You're not giving me anything," and I makes me feel like I can't tell if you're being serious or not. It doesn't feel real, you know? Monica Rial is also a better crier. Even though the Monica Rial was definitely actually crying, though, like, because that was an actual, that's what she actually felt. That was a real emotion. For Amber, like, it just felt so fake. And that's not me saying, oh, like, you know, her acting ability, or like, I don't know anything about Amber Heard's acting ability. I only remember her from Aquaman. Okay, I thought she was a good actress in Aquaman. That, or maybe I'm just really bad at telling. I don't know.
No, I agree. She wasn't a terrible Mira.
Yeah, I'm like, I could have sworn I thought she acted good, because everybody's like, oh, she was such a bad actress, and then I'm like, was she? Was she really? I don't know. I thought she was pretty good, in my opinion. And then when I look at this, I'm like, it actually feels like you're trying to act, and it doesn't look good. It looks really, really bad, you know. And then, of course, you know, there's a lot of clips. Like, yeah, the clips are biased, but showing the clips doesn't help Amber Heard's case either. Like that pausing when she saw the cameraman, so to take a picture.
God. To take a picture.
Like,
I was like, are you kidding me? This is totally what a victim of DV and SA acts like. No, I'm sorry. I don't know. I found that extremely strange.
I was, and I'm like, yeah, you're not helping anything. You're making yourself look worse. And it's like, honestly, Amber, I'm kind of done with you. Even though, like, I was actually one of the people when this all came out, I was on Amber Heard's side.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, I'm so used to being around female victims of of abuse of some sort. So when the whole, oh my gosh, Johnny Depp abused Amber Heard, and I'm like, of course, celebrities, and I'm like, this is why you don't follow celebrities. And I'm like, but then I'm like, whatever, I'm gonna just ignore it or whatever. I don't think it's a big deal. Just, you know, make sure he gets evidence, hopefully goes to jail, blah blah blah. And then I was recommended the recordings, and I was like, well, mother crapper, it was the girl this time. And this is why you still shouldn't follow celebrities as idols. Even though I didn't even know who the frick Amber Heard was.
Well, I knew Amber from, I love Never Back Down. It's just a cheesy movie, but I thought it was really good. Mind you, that was before she looked to me like a different person. But I also remember her brief cameo in Zombieland, and then I did, just like you.
Zombieland?
Yeah, she was like the hot chick next door that turned into a zombie. But I reviewed Aquaman. I thought it was
boring.
I thought she did good. What's that?
What? No, nothing.
No, I thought she did a great job as Mira. So that being said, she should be able to act the hell out of this, right? Like, if we, and I know a lot of people don't think of her as a great actress, and that's fine. But me thinking that she did a good job in being a decent actress, she should have been able to act the hell out of this. And it was like, there was so much inconsistency. Now, when it comes to the Believe All Women thing, which is kind of like, you know, going a little bit further into the Me Too movement, it became Believe All Women. And that's where I really started to have the issue with it, because you don't ever take some subset of the population and believe them 100%. I've said this with Snyder fans or Republicans or Democrats, or there's always going to be terrible people in every group. There's always going to be that one person that is willing to capitalize upon somebody's good intent. And that is what I feel like Amber did. Amber took a lot of the good stuff that came out of the Me Too era, whether it was Harvey Weinstein or Kevin Spacey. There was good examples of why that needed to be publicized. But then comes in the vermin, and they always kind of come in towards the end and weaponize something because of their gender. And that's what it was here. You have to believe me because I'm a woman. No, we had, I believe, oh my goodness, I think I've been covering this trial. My channel's almost 4 years old. It will be 4 years old in September.
I thought you were here for like 10 years. I'm just kidding.
It's that way. It's the boring drum craziness. But I've been covering this trial for, I believe it was once those audio recordings came out. So it would have been 3 years in March, right? So I've had my chance to go through evidence, to go through court documents, to go through depositions. And there was always this. Now, the audio recordings opened up a lot of people's eyes. And it really made people look at it in a more objective light. Like, you have this woman who's claiming to be the victim over and over again, simply saying, I didn't hit you. I don't know the motion of my hand. Like, you weren't punched, babe. Like, I hate that line. I absolutely hate it. And she can't back it up or even have something similar, have something that could be just as damning. She has nothing along those lines besides a few text messages, which were not an admittance. They were, they were terrible, sure, but they were a venting type style. They weren't a back and forth between the two. So this kind of made the world look at it more in an objective light. Like, should we believe all women? Should we believe without actually using our logical side of our brain and being like, look, this woman clearly is using it. This woman is clearly, again, capitalizing upon it. And a lot of people for this fell apart. Like, I don't think Amber killed it, but she may have made people hate it. Like, she may have actually done more damage to the public persona of women, victims, than she realizes. Like, I mean, of course, you know the cry wolf story, right? The boy who cried wolf.
Yes, of course.
That is, in a nutshell, what we're looking at here. So now every time somebody else cries wolf, you know, even if they are an actual victim, people are going to go, I don't know, maybe. And it's going to be harder and harder for actual victims to prove their case because they're going to need more and more evidence. Now, did you ever follow the stuff that happened with Rihanna?
Chris Brown thing?
Yes.
Like a long time ago when it was a meme and I didn't understand. I'm like, yo, he just beat her? What? Well, who's Chris Brown? Who's Rihanna?
Now, these are two very, very public situations that are like almost opposite of each other. But if you look at them, you can kind of compare, because if you look at Rihanna, she looked terrible.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell some really bad shit went on. She looked like nightmare fuel bad. But then when you look at Amber, there's a little bit of a bruise here, a little bit of a bruise there. And some of them, I would almost argue, I would almost think that they'd be able to argue were maybe Botox bruises. Like, in the perfect areas for Botox, and I don't know. That's just me. I think some of it was a lot put on. But then we also go into this idea of what was brought up in the video I talked to you about, which is falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus, which means, basically in a nutshell, if you lie about one thing, we can't believe the rest of your testimony. So there could have been, and there likely was, in some of those situations, you know, stuff back and forth between her and Johnny, that journal they wrote in, all of that. Sprinkles of truth in there. Expanded, and hyperbolized to the point where we don't know, and maybe she doesn't even know, what part of her testimony was true and what part was. Do you think if somebody is willing to lie about one thing, the rest of their testimony should be pushed out?
Can you say that one more time?
So, falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus. Do you think that if she was willing to lie about something, using it as an example, like the donation, pledge,
Mm-hmm.
donation, synonymously thing, if she's willing to lie about something like that, is she willing to lie about the rest of it?
Oh yeah, definitely. The entire thing was like improv, and you can tell.
Mm-hmm. Wait, you said improv. So do you think she was coached?
Do I think she was coached? No, I think she was trying to make it up as she went.
Yeah, because nobody in their right mind, and I mean nobody, uses pledge. I'm sorry, pledge and donate synonymously. Those are two very. That's like using, I hug and punch someone in the face synonymously. Like I get that's a little hyperbolic, but that they're two different meanings. They're two different meanings. It's like I use racism and kindness synonymously. I sometimes I'm really racist. I mean kind. It makes zero sense in my logical brain to think. Yeah, you know what? It does make sense. She wanted the attention. She wanted to feel altruistic. You know what I mean?
Yes. I don't even
Yes.
know what that means actually, but
She wanted people to admire her for what she did.
Oh, yes, I completely agree with that.
she got it for a while, but I think for I've come across some amazing people in the depth community that are able to go through and pinpoint, like, I've found some of her lies, one that I'm particularly proud of, but there are people in the depth community that have been able to go through testimony and pictures and timelines and actually able to point out where she changed her story, when she changed her story, how Whitney's, doesn't line up with her story, and actually be able to pick at her lies even better than these lawyers can at some point. Like, it's pretty freaking amazing how we see these people do that. And that was a big deal after the verdict had come out with Elaine, who was her lawyer, saying that social media influenced this. Do you think social media had anything to do with what the jurors had to say at the end of the trial?
Do I think the jurors had anything to say after the trial?
No, crazy person. Do you think that they, Elaine came out and said social media influenced the jurors? That's why they sided with Johnny. Do you think there's any truth to that statement?
I mean, even if they did, they're literally in the courtroom. They can see it all happening.
Right.
And they know, we have called out multiple times how many times Amber has actually looked at the jury. The jury know they're being looked at too. So it's like, even if they were, they have the evidence looking at them right in the face. So it wouldn't matter. If they didn't, they have the evidence right in front of them. If they did, they still have the evidence right in front of them.
Yeah, and they got a 7-week crash course on everything that was happening in deep parts of their relationship that nobody should probably have public. They knew about it. They knew really intimate personal details of their love life, so much so going into their journal. So to say that social media really took an influence on this trial, I would say the trial of public opinion, it absolutely did. It shaped the internet for 2 months. But as far as the jurors, I think it was going back to that falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus kind of thing. They saw through a lot of the lies very early on, and they saw through a lot of what Amber's ego doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't let her ever take the L. There's that really good clip of Amber and Camille going back and forth about the pledge and donation thing. And Amber just wouldn't let it go. She just wouldn't stop. And I do think that really, really was something that the jury could pick up on and go, hey, yeah, this is pretty weird. This is pretty weird. Nobody acts this way. And then you add, people even on her side, trying to diagnose Johnny without actually seeing him ever, and just this complete fucking circus It had nothing to do with social media. It had to do with the way your client acted and the way that she treated people and the way that she treated the jury. And it was pretty evident to see from even an outsider standpoint. It was evident to see. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So when it comes to Me Too, do you think, how do I phrase this? Do you think that is actually going to have any credibility anymore, or believe all women? And what do you think that women, actual women survivors, can do to shape and get acceptance for that again? That was a loaded question. I apologize ahead of time.
No, you're fine. That's so hard because for me, how I found out that, you know, girls can like lie about this stuff was like I believe I was like starting to get into YouTube and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And there was something that was always being like recommended to me, and it was, oh my gosh, this black teenager went to jail because of rape. And but it turns out it was false. And I actually got that recommended to me on YouTube numerous times over the
Oh,
years.
wow.
And it's always a white girl and a black boy in their like teenage high school years. And a lot of times they were where they're like dating, or the
Right?
white girl had a crush, and there was no, what's it called, there was no feeling, it was one-sided.
Right.
So they were like, oh, you won't give me what I want, okay, so I'm gonna call you a rapist. And then those teenage boys, a lot of times, a majority of them were in sports.
Right.
They were always in sports, and you know, with like scholarships and, you know, job opportunities and all that stuff. And then they're in their like 30s to 50s, and then the girl also around that age would be like, yeah, I lied, I'm sorry. Or something else like, oh, they found evidence themselves, that's not what happened. And
Yeah.
I'm like, why is this such a big thing? And I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you lie and ruin somebody else's life? The fact that you didn't out yourself after like a day, but you waited years. And it's like, did you think about it every day? Did you regret it every day? Did you forget about it like 20 years later and be like, oh, snap, that happened, I should probably get him out of jail? And it's like, that's freaking terrible. But that's when I realized, like, oh yeah, girls will freaking lie. And the fact that this is a very big thing for black teenagers, and it's
Yeah.
happened many times over the years, and I'm like, well, that's freaking messed up. How come we're not doing anything about this, man? And it also reminded me of that time there was something on a college campus where a girl pledged she was
Yes.
raped, and she was carrying a mattress, and then it
Oh,
started
yeah,
to
the mattress
trend.
woman, and then there was
Yeah.
look like a lacrosse player also, I believe.
Yeah, something like that. And then everybody started bringing in their own mattresses and everything, and I'm just like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And then you learn it's all freaking fake, and you're like, wow, those scumbags, stop making me believe. Stop
I
giving
know.
me hope, you know. When I like it's kind of sucks because I'm like, if like, stop. Please, like, this doesn't look good for us at all, you
No, it
know.
makes women look, and you brought up the mattress girl. Was it ever, I'm trying to look it up real quick. What is it ever, wasn't it she discredited? Like,
I
she was
think
never
so.
raped?
Yeah, I do
What's
know for a
wrong with
fact that it
you?
was proven that she was never raped at all. And like, out of, I forgot what she wanted. Like, I don't know if it was like some sort of benefits that she wanted or whatever, or if it was that she wanted something and like one-sided thing again. A lot of times it's always a one-sided thing. I want this. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. Rap. Grape.
Yeah.
Abuse.
It's even to the point like have you ever read the book Lucky or The Lovely Bones?
I've heard of Lovely Bones, the book, and then I know it became a movie, but everybody says the book is better.
Way better. Way better. But she was actually raped when she was 18 years old, and the man that was convicted served 16 years in prison to be let go and found out that it wasn't him. And you talk about this like white woman, black man kind of almost weird trope that happens. And that's exactly what happened here. And even to the point like we can go back in history. This isn't a brand new thing. This has been happening for a long time. Look at Emmett Till. A very, very terrible, like it wasn't a rape, obviously, but a white woman accused a little 14-year-old black boy of whistling at her or asking her out. The story changed. And he was beaten to death brutally. And this woman, still at 80 years old, is just living her life, like watching Wheel of Fortune and shit. Like, something has to change. And I think
that's right. You saw that post from Jean about that, right? I remember you commenting on her community post about that.
By the time I seen it, it was gone. I didn't know.
So apparently, it's not gone. I don't know what happened, but I decided, since I have a Twitter, I went to go on Twitter myself to look up the account name, and that tweet is still there, but the link's not working, and I have no idea why.
So what was it exactly?
So people were looking up Emmett Till's father, which I think was like Lewis or something like that. And they were looking up his history. And apparently he was also an alleged like abuser or rapist for a white woman, which was never proved. But the Twitter account was like mostly just saying like father, like son.
Are you fucking kidding me?
And that, of course, Emmett Till abused and sexually assaulted a white woman because that's what his father did. When nothing has been proven at all, and that despite Emmett Till being 14 years old when this happened, people in that comment section were agreeing that he definitely should have been beaten to death, and that, oh my gosh, I'm so happy there was a bunch of white people there to attack this boy. And that people, including Jean, were saying, I believe Jean said it, like, hey, the woman herself said that's not what happened. And they're like, oh no, but that's not what she said. That's what like her agent or something said. Like that never happened or whatever. And I'm like, no, there was a time when I don't know how old she is now, or she's even still alive.
She's still alive, yeah. She's like 80 now.
Yeah, she went on TV and said, I don't even remember what he did, but him being beat to death, but whatever he did to me did not deserve him being beat to death at all. She's like, she doesn't even remember, but she was like, yeah, him getting beat to death definitely wasn't the answer. And that was not from her agent. That is like right now in her 80s. Or maybe she said in her 70s. I don't remember.
Right.
Like, even though that memory is gone, she said it herself that should not have happened. And they're still defending that it should have happened, and they're glad that it happened. And I'm like, so why are you so focused on this black man's father who allegedly did this, and there's no proof, but you're not going to look at the mother who doesn't have anything on her from what I've seen, and you're only blaming the father. And that's because they're so obsessed with fathers. They're like, oh, you're a woman and you're acting like this? That's because you didn't have a father in your life. Oh, you have a son who's acting like this? That's because he's raised by a single mother and there's no father in the picture. And I'm just like, why are you guys so obsessed with fathers? I was raised by a single mom. No, there was a lot of trauma with that. But that's something else. But mostly I'm fine.
Does Bianca need a hug?
No.
Okay. But yeah, I I made a video a long time ago about Emmett Till, and I had to, this was years ago, delete some of very similar people saying the same thing. Like it was deserved. It was deserved. That is looking back into the father's history. It's not just about fathers. It's unfortunately what I've seen come from a lot of people. And I'm not talking just Republicans. I'm not talking just Democrats. They'll look into the history. Do you remember Breonna Taylor? They were looking into, oh my God, but her boyfriend. Oh my God, but she did this 7 years ago. Oh my God, but this, but this. Any way to basically justify or explain away violence towards Black people. And it's very weird to me. Like, even if I were to bring up George Floyd, right? On a
Mhm.
live stream, I still get people saying, Derek Chauvin was wrongfully convicted, or saying stuff like, they have like a nickname and I don't know exactly what it is. It's like a methadone Floyd or something along that lines. Like anything to criminalize Black people, and they do it. Anything to look in the history of somebody, and they do it. And I don't understand why. And I think it's a little more like, I'm at the point where I won't do it simply because I know, even like since I've had a channel, I've changed a lot. There are a lot of things, even maybe 2 to 3 years ago, I wouldn't stand by now. I don't want those things holding me back. I don't want somebody to hold it against me. So why am I going to care if a 7-year-old tweet or 3-year-old tweet comes up and somebody says something I don't agree with? I'm not going to hold it against you, because a lot of times those can be used as weirdly teaching moments, right? It's just something that I've seen done a lot lately, and it's kind of vindicative of cancel culture. This went from Emmett Till to cancel culture, but I'll bring it back all around, I promise. George Floyd's father served, I'm sorry, Emmett Till's father served in the military also. He did his best he could during that time period for his family. I don't trust what some Wikipedia article said he may have whistled at a white woman, because look what happened to his son. There is no justification for what happened. There is no justification for what happened to George Floyd. There is no justification for blaming somebody for rape or any sort of abuse. To weaponize your body, to weaponize your victim status when it's completely fabricated. And we've seen it done too many times. And those type of people fucked over a lot of real sympathy that could be had for real victims. And that's where my biggest issue is. Your lies affected people that are actual victims. In doing so, you trivialized the idea of abuse and rape.
That was beautiful.
It sucks, because, like, okay, I don't know anything about this situation, but a lot's going on right now with Roe v. Wade. A lot of people are coming out and talking about it. So I've seen a little bit of a clip from AOC. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I lied.
You don't know who AOC is?
Oh yeah, I know who I that's the girl, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah. So I do know that she's a girl.
Um, I seen a thing this morning where she said, basically, talking about Roe v. Wade. I was raped 10 or 12 years ago, and then kind of went, it was very weird to me. It was like 10 or 12 years ago. It was 2011 or 12. Like, when I start to question you is when, and this brings it back to Amber, not knowing specifics, because those moments are burned into your brain.
Unfortunately.
And you just don't go, oh, well, it may have been 2010. Well, you know what? Maybe it was 2006. 17. No, wait, I may have been 24 or 47. I don't remember, but it totally happened. It doesn't work that way.
I hate it when people say that. It was honestly the thing with the Vikmanyana case too. There was like it's mostly girls. I realize there hasn't been any guys from what I remember. But like it was girls who were like, "Oh my gosh, he just went up and hugged me that one time." And I think I was uncomfortable then. And I'm like, "No, no, no. This isn't something you think. This is
Right.
something you know." And like you said, is edged into your brain. And sometimes you're like constantly thinking about it. And it makes you feel super uncomfortable. I'm like, no, this is something you should know. This isn't something you think.
It's
Like, stop, please.
it's
Like, this is
not.
something you constantly think about throughout your life. I
Yes, and
remember
it's
my
burned.
mom I remember my mom, I was like, "You know what? I didn't ask that much questions when I was younger. I think I should." And so I started asking my mom questions about the, molestation, that happened with me. And my mom was like, "You remember that?" I'm like, "Yeah, mom, of course I remember that. That's not something I'm gonna be able to forget." And this is the same person who looks at me dead in the face, with like and would say something like, "Okay, so I remember that time I was almost kidnapped on the street." I remember that one time I was followed outside the club and I had to lose him. And I'm just like, and you're telling me you're wondering how I remember all this stuff, and for you, you were like a teenager, and I was only like what 10 or 11 years old. And I'm like, it's not unheard of. I
Right.
will say sometimes, depending on who you are, sometimes you will like your brain will purposely like forget that.
Right. It'll kind of compartmentalize it until a smell comes up or you feel your skin crawl and sometimes it'll bring you right back. Those We all deal with kind of um not what's the right word? We all deal with grief in our own way. We all kind of have our ways to dealing with it. Personally, I if I'm upset or sad, I constantly stay busy because it's easier for me to not think about things. I process by not processing, if that makes sense. I avoid.
Yes.
And it's always worked for me, and then, I'll have a breakdown for a day and I'll go back right back to not processing. But when somebody that's when I initially get very suspicious, just because those things there are things, yes, your brain can help you forget, but there are things you will never ever be able to forget. And that's what's fucking terrible about it. I can remember I haven't been able to smell since 2014, but I can remember smells of this man. I'm not gonna get into it, but I can
Like you can't
remember.
smell.
No, I actually can't. I had a
Huh.
broken nose
You're
and
you and my mom are twinsies, though for
you can't
her,
smell either?
she hasn't smelled since she was a kid.
Oh, wow.
So, like, that was traumatizing for her, when you're a kid and, like, you're in, like, freaking elementary school, preschool, or whatever, and, people can smell you smell bad, but you don't know.
Oh my god, Bianca, I'm not kidding. You know I have cats. I haven't been able to smell. One time the cat sprayed on my shirt. I was so fucking I was like, I will never forget it, and now I'm super crazy about it, but I was like, "Oh my god, what's wrong?" Like, "What's going on?" Oh my god, yes. It's terrible not being able to smell. But, even not being able to smell, I can remember what something smelled like. You know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of things that are etched, unfortunately so. And that's where when I hear somebody like AOC be like, "Well, it was 10 or 12 years ago." I'm like, I don't know. Don't use Even if you're not using it against somebody, don't use those kind of assaults, any sort of assault, whether it's physical or sexual, as a ploy to make yourself look better. Don't do that, or you're like a victim. I don't know, better is the word for it. But it's been adapted into our culture as a way to kind of leverage attention, I guess is the way to put it. And
Yes.
the thing is weird to me is I mean, I've talked about this very rarely before, but as somebody that's been raped in 2006, um nobody wants attention for that. Don't pity somebody. don't make them feel like they're inferior or a victim. Because they're
Yes.
not a victim, they survived. They're a survivor. They don't want to feel your pity. They don't. They want to. I mean, maybe some do, but generally, no, not in that situation. What
It's mostly
happened
like
with
they want you just to understand,
yes,
And
and
and people have to
understanding it.
understand it's not just with female victims. Male victims want the same thing too.
Yes, and I think that is going back to the initial beginning of this, and I think that's why this became so widespread, because there's not a lot of male victims in this situation of domestic violence that have had a public kind of conversation. Why do men get the short end of the stick when it comes to this? Why is it just now that male victims feel like they can come forward because Johnny Depp did it? And I think it's great that they are, but they should
Mhm.
have always been able to come forward.
I mean, when you see stuff like, my sister was watching South Park,
Right.
with her boyfriend, and, one of them was the episode where the female teacher,
Mhm.
was having sex with one of the main kid's little brother, Stan's little brother, Ike, that's what his name
Oh,
was.
yeah. I haven't
Yeah.
seen a South Park in forever, but I do remember that,
Mhm,
or
and,
that character.
my sister was like, "What the crap's going on?" And then she, like, when she's accused of it, she was like, "I was, like, depressed and drunk," or something like that. And then everybody's like, "Okay, yeah, that makes sense." And then she doesn't get, condemned for it. Like, people believe her and just let her go. And
Right.
then my sister was like, "What the heck is that?" And I'm like, "You do know that's true, right?" And she's like, "What?" She's like, "That happens. All a woman has to say was like, 'Oh my gosh, I didn't know what I was doing. I was an alcoholic,' or whatever." And, they get left off the hook. But every single time when Stan talked to a parental figure or an authority figure about what's happening with Ike and the teacher, all the guys would just say, "Nice."
Right,
And my
exactly.
sister was like, "Why are they saying that?" But I'm like, "'Cause it's true." Every single time I'm on a YouTube video where a little boy was rather, like, sexually assaulted, sexually harassed, or was, like, raped, um by like a female teacher, there's so many guys on there that praise it and be like, "Nice, man. I wish that was me. Was she hot though?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, stop. This is the reason why they don't want to come out." Like, holy crap. And then like you see like guys like, okay, I see a lot of guys on here like every time when I came out to my friends who are guys, they would literally just say how lucky I was. And that makes me like not want to come out
Right.
to anybody. Like, why are you praising this thing? Like, this traumatized me. And then there's that one person who was like, yeah, I totally had sex with her as a kid and it was awesome. And like she gave bad head, so I sued her for it. And I'm like,
What?
I don't remember if suing is the word.
Right, but
But
I
she like,
yeah.
he was a child and she was an adult, and that was wrong. But the reason he went to like the police was because she didn't give good head, and I'm like, what are you doing? What, bro? Like, not the right reason to do something like that.
Yeah. Like,
That's
and
some weird stuff.
if it's vice versa, a 28-year-old male and a 14-year-old girl, it's the conversation's completely different. And it shouldn't be. These are still kids. These are still people that are grooming kids. And to the point where I remember watching, oh my god, this is going to date me. Glee. I loved Glee. Shut up. It's so cute.
There's nothing
Um
wrong with Glee.
Yay. Okay, some people kind of look at it and cringe, but I love it. It's cute. They had Puck, I believe his name was, dating the teacher in the show. And it was
No.
like this, will they, won't they? Oh my god, their relationship. No. Those things you got to treat it the exact same. You have to, because that storyline would have never flown if it was a 15-year-old girl. It's still not okay if it's a boy. It just blows my mind.
There was also there was a few years ago there was like a lot of LGBT movies coming out, like gay movies, and all that stuff, and people were saying, "Oh my gosh, this is one of the best representation movies," and I'm like, "What is this about?" And it's like, "Oh my gosh, this high school boy is gay." I'm like, "Uh-huh," and he finds love, and I'm like, "Okay," with his gay teacher, and I'm like, "No." No. that's no, that's
Nope.
disgusting. I don't care if like in real life they're like the same age and he's just playing a high schooler. No, that's not good representation. That's disgusting stuff. That's like some grooming stuff, man.
Yeah. What?
That's
Who?
gross.
Yeah, it's really gross. I think. Oh, I can't. Pretty Little Liars did a similar thing too. It's just like, oh, these. Yeah, I get sometimes that seniors can be closer to age than, but it's not just the weirdness of the age, it's also the power dynamic, right? Like, it's not okay to be in a position of power and levy that towards a relationship. Nobody should be doing that. And and the double standard is really there. It's actually pretty funny. I was listening to um Amazing Atheist this morning, and he was talking about, I guess, right wingers are going crazy because there was a picture from a restaurant that must be more popular in Florida, right? And leave it to Florida. Sorry. Sorry. But it was a base. I think from my understanding, the restaurant is like a gay hangout. They have a drag night, and right wingers were having a fit because there was a child holding a hand of a cross dresser with short skirt on, right? Um, but when he was talking about the story, he was at the pool. This woman, with a voluptuous booty, had her kids around in a G-string thong. Like, the 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 hypocrisy is so insane. And I think these double standards are getting better. Kinda,
Maybe.
kinda, but they're still clearly there. Like, what happened? And I don't know much about the situation because didn't follow it religiously, but what was Vikmanyana accused of?
So, what he was actually accused of was literally just an HR issue that nobody decided to contact HR for and just go to court.
Yeah.
Apparently, like, he was too affectionate in the workplace, like, because he and people are like, well, no, that's not an excuse, and I'm like, yes, it kind of is an excuse. I'm sorry, but he's from like an Italian family.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but like sometimes Italians are like similar to like
Overly
Spaniards
affectionate.
or people from Europe in general or Hispanic Latinos, where we're very affectionate towards we can be affectionate towards everybody and be like
Right.
very touchy and all that stuff. And me as a specific person, I do not like being touched, right? Like
Mhm.
I like the distance, keep away. But like he is obviously not that way. He's like how he was raised. And even like his mother was like, I'm sorry, like we are like this. And mostly and it was like that was mostly it. Like people were like, oh, it's because he raped somebody, it's because he sexually assaulted somebody, and it's like, no, he was just too personable in the workplace, and he definitely should have asked for consent.
Right.
Because not a lot of, like Monica Rial said, like, she is like a rape she was raped as a teenager, so who knows, maybe she doesn't like being touched or whatever.
Right.
But she said herself that she did talk to him, and she's like, hey, I'm not comfortable, can you not? And Vikmanyana is like, okay. And she said that he actually stopped for a while. But then like he started doing it again. And I'm like, hey, it worked for the first time, do it again.
Right.
Keep on reminding him. But she
Yep.
said that after the first time she just never did it again. And I'm like, why would you do that? Don't stop asking. Keep asking. And if it happens enough, say you're going to contact HR for it, and people are like spreading all of this thing like being a pedophile or being a weirdo with kids. And like, here's the thing, if that's true, then that's true. But that's not what he went to court for. That's not what he lost his job for. It's not.
I thought it was way deeper than that.
It's not. And so the whole thing was stupid. Like, I don't know who decided on it. Like, maybe it was the lawyers, or maybe it was Monica Rial and Jamie Marchi,
Yeah.
whatever how you pronounce it. Like, there was memes online while the court was going, and then somebody released a video and be like, haha, I bet that the Monica Rial people are going to use this as evidence for court. And it was Vikmanyana eating a jelly bean, and he was like, haha, I ate Monica Rial. And it's like, people thought of it as sexual, but for me, I'm a weirdo, and I thought it was a Titan joke. I thought it was an Attack on Titan joke, like he's huge and she's like a little tiny person, and he just ate her. But they actually ended up using that for court.
Oh my.
As evidence. And I'm like, oh my gosh, freaking stop. Stop. And not only that, but they were also like digging up on Monica Rial's husband during that time. And apparently he is also an abuser.
Oh, I remember hearing that.
Yeah, like a hardcore abuser. Like, they're like, oh my gosh, 2 weeks before this court, whatever, during that time, whatever time it was, he sent her a recorded message on how he's going to kill her and her dog and all that stuff. And I was like, holy crap. And I will actually say, when Amber Heard was talking and I felt nothing, her testimony reminded me exactly of Monica Rial's husband. Like, it was full of crap. Because he was like, I used to like be not a good person, and I changed. But Vikmanyana, he doesn't look like he's a guy who would actually change, and he's never going to change. And I'm like, why does it look like bullcrap is spewing out of your mouth right now? Like, why do you sound so like knowledgeable and experienced about this? And he was wrong. Vikmanyana did change. He went to therapy for this. He went to counseling for this, to ask for consent about this stuff. I met him after the trial in 2019, and me and his manager were like really good friends. We bonded over a YouTuber. And I only had enough money for like an autograph. And my brother, like, he put his money, and he's like, take a picture. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I don't need a picture, just a sign. He's like, take a picture. He's like, she's taking a picture, by the way. And then, while I'm about to take this picture with Vikmanyana sees my brother, and he's like, hey, do you want to get in the picture? Aww. And my brother's like, oh, well, sorry, like, that's all the money I have. He's like, no, don't worry about it. Come on, let's all take a picture together. And he's like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, come on. Like, nobody left behind. And so we all took the picture together. I still have it in my photos. And so when people are like, oh, he's never going to change or whatever, I'm like, yes, he has changed. He asked if everything was okay. He made sure everything was okay, And it's like, don't say he won't change. But like, that Monica Rial's husband, I can tell he's a freaking weirdo. Like, he creeps me out. It creeps me a little bit, creeps me out more than Amber Heard, to be honest. Every time I saw any one of his testimonies, and I'm like, you sound freaking sus, bro. Like, you scare me. Like, I do not want to see you in real life ever, And if he is still doing that with like Monica Rial, shoot, I'm praying for her.
Are they still married?
I believe so. I don't remember hearing any divorce of some sort, but like, she still stayed even knowing he's like that, and that's pretty scary. So I'm hoping that she's safe if they are still together. And a lot of times when they would say evidence about anything, like, oh my gosh, I remember when and during the court, when they say, I remember Vikmanyana doing this, like Jamie Marchi, for one of her testimonies, was like, I remember he grabbed my hair, and it was like forcefully, and then he smelled it, and then he said something sexual. And I'm like, I hope you remember what that sexual thing was, because they're going to ask you what that sexual thing was. And she was asked, and she said she doesn't remember. And then Vikmanyana comes up, and he was like, I said her hair smelled nice. And I'm like, listen, he could be lying about this. You know, he could be saying some bullcrap out of his mouth, but the fact that he actually said an answer, that was where you messed up. If you don't have an answer, but he does, that looks bad on you. That doesn't
Yeah.
look good on you. You know, like memory is a big thing with freaking testimonies or whatever. Like you could have lied and said something, but you didn't, and that looked bad on you, and that gave a point to him. You know, and I'm actually so obviously this is gonna be after the live we're doing on Sunday.
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna mention it on Sunday, and I'm also gonna mention it on here. After the Vikmanyana situation, there was another male, I don't want to say victim or survivor because he wasn't hurt in any way,
Right.
and possibly somehow saved his career before it went to crap. There, I know you're not part of it, but there is a Korean pop star idol named Wonho, and he had several accusations himself, and it was I'm not going to describe them in any way because they are dangerous. Actually, this person is known for lying in the K-pop community. This person is Korean. This person is known for not just lying about K-pop idols and all that stuff, but they've also had they said themselves, like, I deliver drugs to these idols sometimes. You like your favorite idol, they're doing drugs, they're doing weed, they're doing all this criminal stuff, and they have actually lost many idols their jobs by saying, hey, this idol, they smoked when they were 12 years old. Boom, person lost their job for that.
Wow.
Even if they were no longer doing it. Like that, as soon as that person would say something, that person would immediately like lose their job if they, if they didn't want to lose face. They even talked about BTS. Like this person from BTS, they were at a club, underaged, and they were doing stuff. And the person from BTS was like, no, I didn't at all. And then everybody's like, okay, they are lying. This person has a track record of lying, and everybody still believes them. So for this situation, they actually hung out when they were kids. And so what their allegation was this time was that we hung out. We were friends. We did drugs. We did weed around 12, 13 years old. And that person owes me crap tons of money. And for the idol world, and not just the idol world in Korea in general, like you cannot be paid unless you finish your debt, pay off your debt, you know, so that can take years. And so he was like, okay, I paid her back. I did not do weed. I did not do any drugs with her. She did, but I didn't take part in that. You know, we were very close, obviously, but they're lying, you know? And so they made him take all these drug tests or whatever, because apparently whatever drug they accused him of, it would still be in his system. Right. Even though he's like in his like mid-20s, I believe. And negative. And so everybody was like defending this person, and they're like, listen, I know they lied multiple times before, but maybe they're right this time. All he has to do is just give them back the money. It's not that hard. And then, but Wonho's lawyer contacted them on Twitter after they made a big deal saying, hey, this person owes me money. And the lawyer was like, okay, give us a time, give us a date. We'll work it out and give you all the money you said that he's not giving you. Didn't answer at all. Completely silent. And it turns out they were lying again.
Shocker.
But there's a lot of people who still believed it. And what he decided would be best was for him to leave the group. And you know, do his own career in music and everything. And shoot, I should follow him on YouTube because his songs slap. And he even made a song for the fans that were like, with him and defended him and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
cool.
my sister, like, he made a song for us. Let's listen. And then we're bawling our eyes out. And I'm like, oh, you mother crapper. And it sucks because after that happened with him, their friend decided to go after another person within that same group.
Oh my god.
This person was older, and I didn't know. I'm like, you're in your 30s? Lies. He was dating a woman, and she actually just happened to be married. And people were like, oh my gosh, why would he date a married woman? That's so freaking disgusting. And then, of course, people were like, why would a married woman date a guy who is single? That's freaking disgusting. You know, it was on both parts. But for him, he didn't know she was married, and even like I believe he was gonna do like some sort of engagement with her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's obviously called off now.
Right, exactly.
But they said that he was called into the office, and she was there, and the husband was there.
Oh wow.
And he found out that he was the other guy, and was like, and everybody's like, yo, like, you gotta understand, he didn't know. And
right.
He was just invited into this room where she and her husband are there, and you're so confused, and you're like heartbroken and all that stuff. And because of what happened, he's like, listen, I am having no contact with her at all, or her husband. I don't want anything to do with that person anymore. And I'm like, awesome. And he's still being blamed for it. And I'm like, he's not the one in the wrong. He didn't know. And so, of course, that backfired on them too. You know, and like, it's so stupid. It's happening so much more with guys. Like, we got to protect these guys, bro.
Yeah. And the thing is what I have an issue with is I think the only way to solve something like this is to have consequences for false allegations. Like, if you're purposefully, with malice, going out there and making false accusations or lying specifically, there's got to be some rule of thumb that, you know, say you accuse somebody of rape and it's a 5-year prison sentence. I know that's way low. I'm just using that as an example. Then the false accusation should hold that same weight. 5-year prison. You see what I'm saying? Like, the only way to stop these ridiculous accusations and this constant kind of pattern of it being weaponized is to actually have somebody get prosecuted for it.
Yeah.
Make a scene out of it. But to
like,
my knowledge, I can't think of any that have.
No, like, these people need to face some sort of freaking repercussions. Like, we got to do something so this doesn't keep happening. And it's terrible. It's idiotic.
But we also, which I noticed was kind of thrown out the window, need to learn from situations like this to not believe every accusation. Like, I noticed right away a lot of people believing every accusation that was thrown at Ezra Miller. And I'm like, did we? And I was guilty of it at first. And I'm
guilty of that too. Like, after so many times of this freaking happening, I'm still doing it. What the heck?
Like, our brains want to sympathize. Our brains want to feel bad or be there for somebody that's in a bad situation. But we also have to learn from it and not, you know, kind of accusations without any evidence at this point should be like, I don't know. Like, do I think, and I don't know, Ezra Miller specifically is a good example because there is that weird, like, cam video of him in the police, with the police, the body cam. But, like, these are still accusations. Nothing's been proven. Why are we calling for his job? Like, why did we not learn? I don't know that we'll ever learn.
It sucks.
It does.
Because, like, I do not like when people just throw grooming accusations out there.
Oh, that's,
not grooming accusations, but more like, oh, we're immediately calling them a groomer. And I'm like, Do you guys know what it's like to be groomed? Here's the thing. You don't have to be a child to be groomed. You can be the same age and you can be groomed. And it could be something as simple as just making a singular decision. Like, not a bad decision. It can all start with, hey, I need you to pay something for me. Can you do that? You know, it can influence like any decision or make you feel safe or that kind of thing, which, you know, a lot of times can't happen as a child.
Right.
But for me, as a child who was molested by a pedophile and also was being groomed by a pedophile who did not speak English and I did not speak Spanish, he didn't try to talk at all. And yet he was still grooming me. That's fascinating, you know, despite, you know, yeah, that's weird for me to say, but it's fascinating how he was trying to groom me by not talking and just using actions. Like every single time in church, he would look at me. When I'm alone in church, he would be right there next to me. Even if there's like a crowd of people, they would not look anywhere. Where he would always sit next to me. My father didn't think anything of it because he's too busy talking about the Bible that he didn't know what he was doing, you know? And then later on, like, and as a child, I knew what was happening. And during that entire time, for I don't know how long it's been going on. That's one thing I do not remember. I do know that it happened in 6th grade. So I was like 9 or 10 or something.
Right.
But I wasn't with my dad all the time. I was with him like maybe every other Sunday or whatever for church. But during that time, I would say, when do I talk about it? How do I talk about this?
Right.
Do I say anything at all? Because this person was kind to my dad. This person was in a band with my dad. He talks to him about the Bible a lot. So how do I bring this thing up?
Right.
Because he obviously has a connection with this person. And so the reason I was quiet for so long was because I was afraid he wasn't going to believe me because of how much he spent time with this person. So I was mostly quiet. And then I was gotten so uncomfortable. I'm like, okay, I need to say something. So there, my dad didn't have his car. So he kind of lends my dad his car so we can go somewhere. What he does is that he purposely will let my dad drive. And because I like the sitting next to the doors, he would sit like obviously in the front where I'm at, like right in front of me, so he can touch behind me, like just reach out his arm, but nobody would see anything because he's immediately talking to my dad and my dad's focusing on the road.
Right.
We go to Taco Bell, you know, when their Mexican pizzas were actually huge. And I was thinking, should I say something in the car? Should I say something at Taco Bell? And I said, well, I don't want to make a big scene.
Right.
I was very shy. But I remember like many years ago, my sister talked to me and she was like, you know, at Taco Bell, I had a strange feeling. I noticed that he was always sitting next to you, but I never caught on until that time we were at Taco Bell. Because after that time on Taco Bell, my dad drove us home. And, you know, he was obviously, because he was my dad's ride, he was waiting for my dad. Right. And so while we're going inside the hallway, I was thinking, should I say it right here? But then I remembered that the hallways in this apartment complex echoes. So if I echoed, he would hear me. So I did not say anything. I told my dad, and this was really weird for me to do. I don't know why I decided to say something like this, but I guess I needed some like reassurance. And I'm like, Dad, if I think something is wrong, I'm going to say meow. And so he's like, okay, I got it. And I'm like, you got it? And he's like, I got it. And I said, okay, meow. And he's like, well, what's wrong? And I'm like, I'll tell you when we're getting close to the door. And so after I knew we were all inside and I'm like, okay, I feel safe in talking about it. That's when I'm like, okay, your friend has been touching me. And then that was like a surprise in my dad's face. And my mom, who didn't know anything was going on, and she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, he's touching me. And then my siblings are like, what the crap? And so my mom's like, okay, everybody to your bedrooms. And so that's when my mom and my dad were like arguing and all that stuff. And I guess my dad, like, I never knew of this conversation. So I asked my mom, what were you guys talking about? And that's when she's like, oh, I immediately say, call the police. And I'm like, and did you? And she's like, no, because your father was running around in circles thinking of what to do. And I'm like, well, he believed me, right? And she was like, no, he thought you were lying. And I'm like,
what?
And this is why I didn't say anything. I knew this was going to happen, and it freaking happened. And it's like, I felt so disheartened by that. And I'm like,
right.
the thing is, like, I knew this was a possibility, but I was still sad to hear it, you know? And my mom was like, I was literally just saying to him, stop arguing, stop thinking your daughter is lying, grab the phone and call the police. And so then my dad does this thing where he talks to himself a lot. And so he's like, I don't know, what should I do? Should I confront him about it? And she's like, no, call the police. And so he leaves. He walks out of the apartment and then comes back into the apartment. And my mom was like, what did you just do? And he said that he went up to him and said, if you touch my daughter again, you're gonna get it. You're gonna, regret it and all that stuff. And then that's when he said, and he drove away. And my mom was so pissed off. And she's like, why would you say that to him? You let him go. And a family member of mine who I think was thinking about doing cop training or something like that, they went up to him because they understood how that felt. And they were like, why the frick would you ever do that? What is wrong with you? And then that's when I learned, after that whole thing that happened, like, oh, he crossed the state lines. So he's not even in the state anymore. And it's like, bruh, why'd you freaking speak, man? And sometimes I think my dad is a freaking weirdo. It's
Yeah,
like,
but at least your dad's so scary he felt like he had to leave the state. Like, that speaks volumes about your father.
Who? What?
I said whatever your dad said was so scary he felt like he had to leave the state. You see what I mean? Like, that speaks,
Yeah.
like, he went in there like Father Bear, like, I'ma fuck you up.
Like, I wish I knew what he would say. And I'm like,
Right.
but I wish he didn't say anything.
I
wish he
get
just
that.
called the police, bro. But it's I asked my mom, I'm like, has this ever happened to me before? And then they're like, my mom's like, yeah, this happened to you multiple times before. And I'm like, huh? What do you mean? She's like, yeah, apparently so many times I have said that teachers have touched me before, or like in preschool or whatever. And I'm like, what? I have? When? What? I don't remember this at all. And I guess that's where the memory thing goes. And she's like, oh, with this teacher. I'm like, that teacher? But I loved that teacher. I don't remember anything bad about that teacher. It's like, yeah, you said she touched you. And so she lost her job. And I was like, are you for real? I said that?
Oh,
And it was
no.
like, I don't remember. I don't remember I don't remember my childhood at all either. But
Right.
whether she did something or not, I acted completely normal around her. Like, I never avoided her. I could have sworn I was always comfortable with her. And it's like, did I lie or did she really? And I just thought nothing of it. And so I'm like, what if I did lie and I cost her job? Or maybe I just didn't think anything of it, but everybody else did and thought it was pretty serious. And like, she still lost her job. That's something I think about a lot. I tend to overthink.
I mean, it's better than not thinking at all.
I guess.
Yeah. Goodness gracious, Bianca. I just need a name and address when you're ready.
I don't even remember her name. Oh, wait.
Oh,
You mean the
goodness.
teacher?
No, I meant the other one.
Oh, I don't even know his last name. I only know his first name. David. It's David, but you know, David is like the Spanish
Right.
way to say it. And my mom was like, "It's always the people who have the names in the Bible."
Oh my gosh.
And because every time she's you know, crime stories
Yeah.
shows? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Like
usually
true
on
crime
YouTube.
stuff?
Yeah. So she's looking at a Spanish version of it, and every single time something happens, it's a person with the name of the Bible, and she's like, "Why are all these people have the names of the Bible?" And I'm like, "I don't know."
Popular names, maybe? Oh my goodness.
So yeah, like you don't have to even like speak the same language to be groomed. Like it's a vibe, it's an atmosphere, you know. Just looking at somebody with like intent or whatever, that can be like a sign of grooming or
Right.
whatever. Not just like saying, "Hey, you want to go somewhere?"
Right.
That's not grooming. That could literally just be like a hangout. But hey, people have been groomed by their own family members too.
Yeah.
So that's also, you know, that's it's hard, you know, but don't just put like groomer out there. It's
Yeah, they did
unless
it
you've
with the
actually experienced it,
yeah.
then you know, I guess everybody's a groomer technically.
They did it with the they're trying to do a lot with the grooming label with the LGBTQ community. They did it with the Don't Say Gay bill, remember? They were calling it the
Mhm.
anti-groomer law, and it's just like you're sometimes using words you don't even know the correct definition of. Just stop. Just take a moment to realize people actually suffer from this and use a little bit of empathy and compassion. But those I say that so often and it's so lost. Oh my goodness. All right, we are going to wrap up. But is there anything I missed before we go?
Um, I think I think we're fine.
Yes. In essence, no, Amber didn't kill the movement. It was dead beforehand because people don't take this kind of stuff as seriously as what they should.
Or they take it
Unfortunately,
more
so.
seriously with females than with males.
Yes. And that's one great thing that Johnny doesn't even know that I mean he may know, but he didn't realize he did by coming out as a victim of domestic violence. He gave males a voice. He gave real victims a voice, and I think that's if anything else comes from this, that is one thing I find extraordinary. But make sure you guys check out Bianca's channel. Make sure it will be in the description, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.